Now it's time to talk about a meal that a lot of people look forward to, and I know I do, because this meal, dinner, generally comes at the end of the day when you've finished doing everything you needed to get done. And if you've got a really busy schedule, well, it's probably the time of day that you're actually sort of letting loose and relaxing a little bit, having got all of those things out of the way. So today, we're going to take a look at some sample meals so you can see what looks good, see what doesn't look so good, and maybe build some ideas for the kind of dinners that you would like to rely on in the next few weeks and maybe in the next few months. First of all, I've got a couple of tips for you. Number one is plan a few meals in advance to make sure that you get a good variety of things. One thing I noticed when I first started with this lifestyle is that I tended to rely on exactly the same meal over and over and over again. Now that keeps life really simple, but it also makes life pretty boring. So I reckon that it's a good idea to plan a few meals in advance, make sure there's different ingredients in each one, and that way you're not going to get bored of this food in a week or two. The second tip I've got is to always make extra, because if you're going to the effort of cooking, you might as well make either a double or a triple helping. And of course, that's not including the other people that you might be feeding in your household. But this is just for you, so you've got some extra for other lunches, maybe other late lunches, or maybe even a really quick breakfast if you need to just throw something in the microwave. It's always a good idea to have a couple of meals just stored in the fridge just in case. So on to the sample meals, and we've got some really delicious stuff here, so hopefully by the end of this you might have a bit of an appetite, or you might think it's time to go grocery shopping. The first meal involves chicken breast fillet strips, and they taste absolutely delicious if you fry them with a small amount of butter, maybe add a little bit of water in to make sure they don't dry out too much. Add to the chicken breast fillet strips some steamed spinach and some white beans, maybe with some Moroccan seasoning, maybe with some tomato salsa. I really prefer some spices, so I do some Mexican spices, but any of the above with the beans tastes absolutely fantastic. The second meal example that we've got is black beans with tomato salsa, steamed green beans, and lean beef steak. Now, I actually prefer to trim the lean beef steak into small strips. It cooks a little more easily, and I like eating it that way as well. You can add a little bit of salt and pepper to taste to the steak if you like, and a tip with the green beans, you might like to cook these with a bit of pepper and salt too, because they taste absolutely fantastic. Now remember that tomato salsa needs to be a kind that doesn't have sugar added to it, and definitely doesn't have any kind of corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, even worse. So double check the ingredients, but there are a lot of options out there, so it shouldn't be too hard to find one that doesn't have sugar added. This is a really, really tasty and hearty, delicious meal, including the beef and the tomato salsa with the black beans makes it quite a good one if you're feeling a little chilly maybe the weather hasn't been so good. This is a great one to come home to. One last tip, which has been mentioned before, but it's important to think about buying either organic or grass-fed beef if you're doing red meat. Because like we found out, the fat that's in that meat, if it's been raised on corn or if it's been raised on grain, it's not really that healthy for you. The third example dinner that we've got is ground beef with tomato salsa, and with this you can use maybe some chili powder or some cayenne pepper if you like a real kick with it. And then there's an alternative to mashed potatoes which actually involves cauliflower and white beans, and you can mash these up together, and you might be pretty surprised at how similar to mashed potatoes these are. Of course, this sounds a little bit like maybe a shepherd's pie, and you can definitely do this in a baking dish and bake it in the oven. If you're going to do something like that, you could even throw a little bit of Parmesan cheese on top of that fake mashed potato for a really great effect. And this is a meal that I love coming home to, and it's also one that I love taking with me because it heats up really easily and it's just as delicious, if not more delicious, the next day. The last meal example I've got is a salmon fillet cooked with lemon juice and pepper, and man, this just tastes amazing. On the side, my suggestion is to do a salad of spinach, red bell pepper, white beans, and lemon juice. And you may want to add a little bit of olive oil or macadamia oil to taste in there as well. This is a really great option to have on a summer evening, feeling warm and, there's just that great mood in the air when you don't want something that's too heavy. And of course, you might always think about having a vodka and water with some ice cubes with this meal. So they're the sample dinners that I've got to offer you, but I also encourage you to check out the info sheet and also have a look at that shopping list again, because probably you're going to think about some really great combinations you can come up with, and there are some extra ideas there for you to check out on the info sheet too. So I hope you find a few dinners that you really love the sound of, and maybe that can also double as some really great lunches. We will be talking about more meals to have during the day in later modules, so for now, you'll have to be content with dinner and then taking some leftovers the next day for lunch.